Welcome to Kevin Deal Photography, where I take you on my journey through photography. On today's episode, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the Hobolite Avant 100 Creator Kit. I'm pleased to announce that I'm launching 3 Capture One style packs: Metamorphic Portraits, The Sound of Silver, and Rangefinder. These will eventually also be available for Lightroom, so if you go to kevindealphotography.com, scroll to the bottom of the homepage, and join my mailing list, I promise I won't send you spam, but I will let you know the second these release. And now, on to today's episode. Welcome to today's episode. If you're not familiar with Kevin Deal Photography, we do gear reviews, tips, techniques, and tutorials, and sometimes we dive into film. If any of that sounds appealing to you, click the subscribe button below. So as somebody who has a YouTube channel that is devoted toward reviews of photography and videography gear, I'm always on the lookout for new and exciting products. I was browsing around on the internet and I saw these lights that came up that looked kind of like a cross between Mole Richardson Fresnels and Hasselblad. And then they came back into my life when I did a shoot in Dallas. I had someone who was a fan of my channel want to assist me and shoot some B-roll of me working in downtown Dallas with an agency model, and he pulled out one of the Hobolite stands. I was like, wow, that's a really cool stand. But then I remembered, wait, those also were those cool lights that I saw. So they were very much in the front of my mind at that point. And right around that time, I went to the WPPI show in Las Vegas and I saw that Hobolite was there. So I stopped by their booth. I went ahead and took a look at all their lights. And sure enough, I now have the Avant 100 Creator Kit. They do look fantastic. You've got this fall leather on the side. You've got great ventilation on top and on bottom. And look, they use V-mounts. I think that's kind of cool because I don't like to fumble around with the screws on top of light stands. And so I could literally just click this in to the accessories that they provide. And speaking of accessories, the machining of the metal stands out quite a bit on these, and we'll get into that a little bit more later. In terms of build quality and construction, it certainly seems like Hobolite did an incredible job, and there are some features in here that I don't see in other lights, and we'll dive into those as well. So, the basic premise behind these lights is that they are bicolor. This particular model is 100 watts. They also make a 20 watt model, and they also make a 300 watt model, in addition to a 10 watt micro model. But today's model, we're going to dive into 100 watts, and they put NFC on the side because they want to make sure that you understand that you can control this with the free app that you can get at the Google and the Apple stores. This model also comes with a fixed 45-degree lens, but you can purchase an optional zoomable lens as well. But let's go ahead and dive into the specifications of this light, and let's go use it out in the field because, once again, as cool as these lights look, we really need to make sure that they deliver professional results. The Avant 100 is a 100 watt bicolor light. It has a color temperature range of 2700 to 6500 Kelvin. Its output is 8500 lumens. It has an NFC connection for mobile app control. This particular version is both AC and DC. It has a CRI TLCI rating of 96 plus for accurate color. It has an incredibly small footprint of 3.29 by 4.63 by 4.91 inches. It comes in at a weight of only 2.75 pounds, and this particular creator kit has a street price of $1,399. So that's all fine and good, but let's dive into the components of this kit, the operation of this kit, and most importantly, the performance of this kit. The Avant Creator AC/DC kit comes with the 100 watt Avant light, the Avant barn doors, the dome diffuser, the multicolored creative gels, and a grid. a 100-watt power supply, a D-tap cable, a 3-meter AC cord, a V-mount handle, a V-mount clamp, a 95-watt-hour V-mount DC battery, the CF240 carbon fiber light stand, and the 24-inch Avant softbox. Additionally, the light comes with a hard shell zippered carrying case, and both the light stand and softbox come with heavy-duty canvas zippered bags. To operate the light, you either need to plug in the AC power or the DC power. Once you do that, simply push the power button. You have two main knobs. On the left, you have your intensity, and on the right, you have your color temperature. You can gradually turn both up and down simply by turning the knob left to right. However, if you want to scroll through very quickly, you can click the knobs, and you'll see with intensity, you can go from 0 to 25 to 50 to 75 to 100, or you can press it again and have a complete blackout. With the right knob, if you press, you can go from 2700 to 3500 to 4500 to 5500 and 6500 Kelvin. Below that, you have 4 buttons. The far left button is the home button. The button to the right of that will allow you to go to effects. We'll get more in depth in those when I show you how to use the app. The next button, when you push that, is your setup. You can go to Bluetooth, where you can pair your phone. You can go fan on, fan off. You have your language, and then you have the version of the firmware that you're using. The far right button is a lock button, which allows you to operate the light without bumping into any of the perimeters and changing them while operating the light. I did mention that there's a 45-degree lens on this light. You can keep that lens on there if you want to put the barn doors on there. However, if you want to use the mini Bowens mount that allows you to use their softbox, you have to push the unlock lock button on the lower right of the light. When you push that, you can twist counterclockwise and pop off that lens. From there, you can put the Hobolite Avant softbox on, or with the purchase of the optional Bowens mount adapter, you can put on a modifier of your own. Now let's check out how to use the NFC connection and the Hobolite app. There is a Hobolite app. It's available for free at all your major app stores. Go ahead and download it, install it. To pair up your Bluetooth, you simply just go to the add button. It'll detect the device near you, assuming that Bluetooth is on, and you just simply select it. And then when you select it, you can go in and change characteristics, like you can rename it, you can monitor its status and all that. So once you've done all that, you can go ahead and click on the device. As you can see right here, you can control the parameters. You can, of course, go up to 100 and make it look like I'm an Oppenheimer, or you can do things in increments where you go 25, 50, and 75. I'm going to take that right back down to 30. There we go. And you can do the same thing with color temperature. So I can make it 3200, looks more tungsten. I could do 4000. I could do daylight balance. And of course, I could make it look like I'm more in the shade right now. I'm sitting at 6500, which is the maximum in terms of color temperature. I'm going to take it back down to 5500 so my skin tones look correct. You can hit the sleep button. It'll turn the light off. When you turn the sleep button off, it'll turn it back on. So if you have a multi-light setup, you hit the call button, it'll signal which light is which. Now let's go through the effects, of which I see 8. The first one is the flash. So I'm going to turn the flash on. Now there is an actual play button you have to push as well, an additional step. So I'm in the flash mode. Now I'm going to go over to the flame mode. You notice that the color temperature is changing to best resemble a flame. Now I'm in the screen mode. Of course, when you're watching something on a TV screen, sometimes it can be warm, sometimes it can be cool. So there's an algorithm that is changing that up. Lightning tends to be on the cooler side. So you can see that there is lightning going on right now, and that tends to be on the cooler side. There is a pulse. So this is the pulse right here. You also have fireworks. Of course, usually a fireworks show is gonna be on that warmer side. So here is some fireworks, warm fireworks. Now you've got a shutter, so it's like a paparazzi mode. And that tends to be around 5500, I'm guessing, somewhere in there, like a camera flash typically is. There's also an explosion. So there's the explosion, makes it look like the dark scenes inside Apocalypse Now. So anyway, that's how that works. go back over to CCT mode. And of course, if you just hit 4000 or 5500 or whatever, it'll take you back into CCT. Now, you can also control the fan. You can turn it on and off, and then you can actually just turn the power on and off from here as well. You can also set up a group, which is great. You can also set up scenes, which is great. Scenes are awesome. I do a lot of different shots for my YouTube channel. So if I have 2, 3 lights, maybe I can have only 2 lights on for one scene and the other lights off, or maybe the color temperature changes. Maybe I want a more tungsten look. And so you can set up those scenes with the app, which is pretty cool. So now comes the most important question of this episode, which is how good is the Avant 100? For me, I set the bar at a professional shoot. So I tested out the Avant 100 as a key light for a beauty shoot for a paying client who was with a professional commercial modeling agency. So let's see how we did. I also used the Avant softbox with that key light. And Hobolite was also nice enough to loan me the Mini, which I tested out as a hair kicker light. I think all in all, in this controlled environment, the Avant 100 did a fantastic job. I wanted to take the Avant 100 into more complex environments, so I decided to use the Avant 100 on a personal project of mine that had very challenging light situations because I was shooting at dusk all the way into blue hour as the sun went down. So the challenge was to keep luminosity where it needed to be, as well as color temperature, because as that sun set on the horizon, the color temperature would get much warmer. And as you can see here, in my opinion, I think that the Avant 100 did a fantastic job. Okay, so now that I have a little bit of time under my belt with the Hobolite Avant 100, what are my thoughts? Well, my thoughts is that for professional work, it's a good light. Now, I don't think it's for everybody, but for the people that it's for, I think it's probably one of the best lights on the market for the money. So let's start with what I loved about this unit. Let's start with the LED screen. The LED screen on this light is by far the easiest and clearest screen I've ever reviewed. The data is large, it's crisp, it's bright, and it was easy to view even when the sun was going down and it was in my eyes. I also thought it was thoughtful that they put visual accompaniment on when you do your color temperature changes. So as you are in the cooler regions, you'll see a blue bar above the dial. And as you transition into warmer color, it'll start to turn more amber or yellow. To me, that is an example of Hobolite actually taking the user experience into consideration, which I do think adds value to a product. I think the menus are straightforward, and I value the fact that there aren't a bunch of sub-menus. Everything is 1 or 2 at most clicks away. I often find with cheaper lights, I'll click on something and I have absolutely no idea how I got there or how I clicked it. I don't have that experience using the Avant 100. I find that the dials are super smooth and reactive to my actions, whether I'm dialing in luminosity or color temperature. On the subject of ease of use, this is the type of product that you could just walk up to and start using. I used the manual a total of 0 times, whether I was trying to dial something in on the back screen of the Avant itself or using the free Hobolite app. I found it super smooth and super easy to get around the fixture. Now let's talk about what I think is the biggest selling point of this light, and that is size and weight. And the reason I say that is because when you look at this light versus this light, This is a 100 watt light, and this is a 60 watt light. Because Hobolite decided to increase output with optics rather than using reflectors, this allows you to store two 100 watt lights in the same amount of space as you can only store one 60 watt light. So if efficiency is a word that is important to you, Hobolite is far more efficient in terms of how it's designed and built. Also, the fact that building the light out is somewhat modular, using external power supplies, using lenses. That decision alone helps you break the light into pieces and find small compartments inside your bag where you can take the light with you, as opposed to being stuck with this gigantic monoblock light that takes up a gigantic chunk of your bag. In my opinion, that form of thinking is an advantage that the Hobolite has that a lot of other lighting manufacturers don't follow. Another thoughtful thing that Hobolite does, and something that stood out to me with the Avant 100, is that Hobolite puts just as much effort into their accessories as they do into their lights. Oftentimes, when you go online and you purchase a cheap Chinese-made light, they'll throw some multicolored socks in there, they'll throw some gels in there that'll fall apart. Let's be honest, the accessories are afterthoughts. Hobolite is different in that they put just as much thought into their accessories as they do into their lights. Stuff like using a very universal V-mount. The fact that they're interchangeable. This particular mount doesn't come with the Avant 100. I'm also reviewing the Mini, and this is the mount that comes with the Mini. And of course, just like the Avant, it uses the V-mount. You can interchange using these accessories, and you saw during the beauty shoot that I pulled out a rolling boom stand from my studio, and the Avant and all of its accessories seamlessly integrated into my studio setup. So the interchangeability of this product makes it useful despite the fact that it is using different types of mounts that you're used to using in the lighting world. Now let's talk about quality. Yes, there is a term that is light. And I don't agree with that term, because if you go out and you purchase a cheap light that has a lot of variability in color temperature when you use it, to me, that's not a good light. A term that I do subscribe to is that time is money. And being able to fit two 100 watt lights in a backpack that takes up just as much space as a single block 60 watt monolight, to me, that saves a lot of time, and therefore that saves a lot of money. Now, what do I mean by that? Let's say you're traveling and you have to take your monoblock lights with you, and you get your luggage over 50 pounds. Now all of a sudden you find yourself having to spend more money, or maybe you have to make more trips to and from your car because you have to bring extra bags. By having this efficiency of less size and less weight, Hobolite saves you time and money. Additionally, the quality of light that this produces makes my job in post-production much less of an issue than it was. Once again, time is money. And if you subscribe to the time is money theory, there are many of you out there that this Hobolite might benefit. So yes, I know that aesthetics are subjective, but the aesthetics of this light draws me toward it and makes me want to shoot with it more. Now, some of you may not care about that sort of thing, and that's totally fine, but I do love gear that inspires me to pick it up, which leads me to my last positive about this light, which is the build quality. This build quality is fantastic. This recycled aircraft aluminum is very well built. And I don't really see any lights on the market that utilize this sort of technology, and the most lights are using that cheap plastic that scratches easily. It's pretty hollow. I would have to say that Hobolite did not spare a lot of size on this. Every square inch of this light has been utilized for some sort of purpose. And that, of course, leads me to my last point about the durability and the quality of this, is that these lights were clearly built by somebody who wants you to treat this the same way that you treat your camera, the reverence that you treat your camera with. I baby my cameras. I don't necessarily baby my lights. A lot of lights are considered to be expendable, but considering the price that you pay for this light, it's probably going to make you think twice about that. And frankly, the build quality and the aesthetic of it makes me think twice about that. So if you are somebody who wants to be inspired to take care of your lights the same way that you take care of your cameras, Hobolite may very well be for you. But this wouldn't be a fair review if we didn't talk about the things that I think that they could have gotten better on this. And the Avant 100 is marketed as a professional light. And I think in general, it is a professional light. I think it checks a lot of boxes. But one box that it doesn't check is we professionals are not just discriminate about how warm or how cool something is, but we're also discriminate about how green or how magenta something is. And one thing that this light lacks is tint. I do want to see Hobolite either in a firmware upgrade or in a future version of this light implement tint, because as somebody who likes to get it right at the camera, if I don't have to do tint in post-production, then that would make this a better tool. While Hobolite does make IP-rated versions of their lights, this particular light is not IP rated, and that's something to consider considering the price of this light. There are lights that you can get for about $1,000 that are IP67 rated. This light is not IP67 rated. Now, I still do need to make a commentary is that I was doing my shoot, my creative shoot that you saw with the diving helmet, and it did start to rain while I had this light on. Now, I did scramble and I did pack this light up. There was water on the light. It dried off. There were no issues. So I don't want to say go take this light out into the rain, but I did take this light out into the rain for a few minutes. I put it away and there was nothing wrong with it in the end. Another thing that could be an issue for some of you if you have very sensitive microphones is that the fan in this is a little bit on the loud side. That is, of course, to be expected. You're trying to put a ton of power into a very small package. It's one of the reasons why it uses an external power supply to keep that footprint small. But in the grand scheme of things, you can hear the fan on this light. Now, you can temporarily disable the fan. However, if you're going to be using this light all day, plugged in, or with a DC battery, 8 hours at a time, you can't have that fan off forever. So at some point, you're going to have the fan on. So something to keep in mind is that you do not want your microphones in too close a proximity to this light. Another thing to keep in mind with this light is that the DC battery only has a battery life of 3.5 hours at 25%. That means that to run this light at 25%, you're going to need 3 batteries to get you through a day. So if you're taking into consideration the portability of this setup and you're going to be in remote locations, you are going to have to bring 3 batteries with you. And of course, it only runs for 50 minutes at 100%. So I'd like to see Hobolite come out with a more robust version of the battery, which will of course make this more popular among professionals. And lastly, the one thing that is debatable on this as to whether or not it's a pro or a con is price. And let's talk about that. I think that the $13.99 price tag for the Creator Kit is a pro. And the reason why I feel that that's a pro is because if you were to buy all the components of this Creator Kit individually, it would be about $1,800. So Hobolite is very generous in taking about $400 off the Creator Kit for the Avant 100. Another thing to consider about the Creator Kit is that it may have things that you don't need. Maybe you don't need the stand. Maybe you don't need the softbox. The great news there is that you can get the Avant Basic Kit starting at $799. And then you can also get versions of the kit that don't have the DC battery. That being said, if all you care about is power, and you don't necessarily care about accuracy, there are absolutely going to be much cheaper options at 100 watts than this light. So there are things to take into consideration when you're thinking about whether or not to get this light. But only you can answer those questions. You can look at all the examples I showed throughout this video, you can factor in your budget, and only you can answer as to whether or not this light is perfect for you. I will say though that the price tag of $13.99 for the Creator Kit to me is absolutely worth the money. That does it for today's episode. I want to thank everybody at Hobolite, Helena, Kevin, and the whole crew for hooking me up with this to test out for today's episode. But I hope all of you found my review to be honest. I hope you found it to be helpful. And if you like what you saw today, tell me about it in the comments below. Do you think this light is overpriced? Tell me about that in the comments below. Are you enjoying your Hobolite, which you've already purchased? Tell me about that in the comments below. And if you like this channel, I humbly ask you to click the subscribe button below. And you want to hear my uncensored and unfiltered opinions on photography and videography related subjects, I highly encourage you to go check out my other YouTube channel, the F11 Photography Podcast. And for those of you who just want to listen to it on your morning commutes, it's available on both Apple and Spotify. And until next time, I'll talk to you soon. Bye.